A mad scientist thought humans were imperfect. He tries to modify them against their will, but fails miserably. A unique bond unites three individuals. They are connected with a rare genetic ailment altering their DNA. Out of them, Tilda Weber, a band's lead singer, manages her condition with controlled medication. AbbiSingh, a passionate scientist, develops a serum to reverse it. Juan Ruiz has no cure, but he dreams of becoming a successful comic writer despite facing rejection. One afternoon, Abbi attends an interview at Oxford University. Surprisingly, both interviewers take a keen liking to her. They start fighting to become her advisor, flustering Abbi, and she leaves. Hours later, during a concert, Tilda's performance takes an unexpected turn. As she sings, her voice makes screens to shatter. She leaves the microphone in shock while her bandmates continue the performance. Meanwhile, Juan has gone without medication for 3 days and can't reach the laboratory. His girlfriend Darcy recognizes his condition and cares for him. However, the next morning, Juan wakes up alone in a forest with a bloody mouth. When he returns home, he is relieved to find Darcy unharmed. He can't recollect his actions but learns from the internet that his victim was a raccoon. On the same day, he visits a clinic and crosses paths with Tilda. 7 years ago, they met during a wellness program, both as specimens in a genetic experiment. While chatting, Abbi also joins them. All three are grappling with side effects. Dr. Sarkov appears, insisting on taking blood samples and new pills. After taking the pills, Tilda discovers she has been replaced from her band already. Abbi, too, faces challenges at her workplace. The next morning, Juan wakes up in the forest once more, this time having harmed a dog. Dr. Sydney Burke, in her home laboratory, receives a call from Sarkov, her former partner. Both share the same genetic alteration and have failed to find a cure together. After analyzing the DNA samples of the 3 patients, Sarkov makes a discovery, but Sydney hesitates to work with him again due to his history of unethical practices. Days later, realizing their condition hasn't improved, the trio discovers Sarkov's deception. He has replaced their vital medication with children's aspirin. They decide to seek help from Sydney, who invites them to her private laboratory. Before leaving, a mysterious figure approaches them to steal synthetic stem cell vials. Juan transforms into a chupacabra and thwarts the thief, but not before Doug, the intruder, attacks the group. Sydney tranquilizes Doug, and while studying his body, she discovers he has gained super strength as a result of Sarkov's experiments. His organs regenerate, and he attacks Tilda, prompting Abbi to act swiftly, piercing his heart. However, Doug's heart revives, forcing Tilda to decapitate him and bury his body. While examining a camera they found, they discovered Sarkov had sent the intruder to record images of his patients. They also notice another girl, Hannah, who had been a subject of Sarkov's experiments. The trio decides to locate her by using Doug's camera. Once they transport Doug's body to the laboratory, Sydney carefully reattaches Doug's head. All his tissues regenerate, and Doug regains consciousness. Despite his regeneration, Doug experiences pain just like anyone else. He can vividly recall every sensation that he experienced before. Like their fellow group members, Doug had also hoped to trace Sarkov and a potential cure, but failed. He asks Abbi for a painless way to end his suffering. In exchange, he will tell about Hannah. After consulting her friends, Abbi agrees. Doug then reveals that all the information about Sarkov's patients resided on his computer. However, their search gives no results, so they return to Sydney's house. Upon their return, they are greeted by an unexpected sight. Sydney has released Doug, but he takes his own life by causing an explosion. After cleaning up Doug's body remains, Tilda makes her way back to the laboratory. There, Juan stumbles upon a hidden door behind a cupboard. This secret room conceals Sarkov's extensive research and a laptop containing invaluable data. With this newfound information, they manage to pinpoint Hannah's whereabouts. Abbi reaches out to Hannah at her workplace, only to realize that Hannah has no leads on Sarkov. She returns with the grim news, leaving them with one option. They should contact the other volunteers of the research. As they delve into Sarkov's laptop, they uncover a dark secret. Sarkov has eliminated many of his subjects, deeming them imperfect. That afternoon, Juan unintentionally reveals his secret to his girlfriend, just as she is closing up the cafe. Hannah receives an unexpected visitor, Isabel Finch, who seeks her help in seeking revenge against Sarkov and other dangerous scientists. Sydney, while managing to keep her powers hidden, grapples with worsening nightmares, fearing for the young people's lives. Abbi receives a call from Max, who informs her of Sarkov's impending visit the following day. Max intends to capture more guinea pigs for further experimentation. However, Abbi intends to thwart his plans. Waking up to Juan's side effects, Darcy pledges her support and even sympathizes with the beast within him. The group embarks on a brief trip, with Abbi taking taking along a pheromone-canceling spray. Before boarding the van, Juan requests Tilda to tie him up to prevent any harm should he transform into a chupacabra. Upon reaching their destination, they are welcomed by Max, who invites them in as they await Sarkov's arrival. While Abby is in the bathroom and Tilda receives a tour of the house from Max, Juan converses with Melanie about his comics. Unbeknownst to them, Melanie incapacitates Juan with a tranquilizer. Tilda also falls victim to an attack. However, Abby manages to use her powers to force Kamara to reveal the truth. It turns out the real Max was eliminated, and they had been lured there as guinea pigs. Using her pheromones, Abby persuades Kamara to inject herself with a sedative. Abby then stumbles upon Max's lifeless body, who had transformed into a fish-like creature before his demise. Terrified, she explores the mansion's corridors and ends up being captured as well. Upon awakening, Abby finds herself restrained and learns that the person who lured her to the mansion is named Nate. As he takes blood samples from Tilda, Melanie raises the room's temperature to collect Abby's sweat for pheromone study. In a moment of distraction, Abby attacks Melanie, revealing her true identity. Melanie succumbs to Abby's control, and Abby orders her never to touch her again. Melanie, unable to bear the prospect of living without Abby, chooses to end her own life. Abby then seeks to rescue Tilda and Juan from their captors. Juan is being electrocuted when Abby and Tilda arrive. Kamara, donning a mask with an oxygen filter, resists the effects of Abby's pheromones. She aims her gun at the guinea pigs, but is interrupted when Juan transforms into a chupacabra, attacking and killing Kamara. Before leaving, Tilda confronts Nate, using her voice to incapacitate him. Abby retrieves a vial of synthesized stem cells and leaves Melanie wounded. Juan flees into the forest in his chupacabra form, eluding Abby and Tilda. Hours later, Jim arrives at the mansion and finds the scientists and Max's monstrous body. He calls in a cleanup crew to collect the bodies and pursue the criminal. Meanwhile, the chupacabra has ventured into a backyard, unbeknownst to the residents. Alejandro grabs a baseball bat to confront the creature in the garage, but there is only his brother, Juan. Hours later, Tilda and Abby find themselves at Sydney's house, where an unexpected superhuman intruder lurks. To their surprise, it is Owen Schultz, another participant from Sarkov's welfare program, subjected to experiments that render him impervious to harm. Sydney invites Owen to her laboratory for testing. Meanwhile, Juan, who has been separated from his niece Paloma due to past family strife, contemplates reconnecting with her. However, his brother Alejandro is hesitant to reintegrate Juan into their lives. After reaching Tilda and reassuring her well-being, Juan receives an urgent call from Owen. While Owen is at Sydney's, he begins exhibiting signs of power loss, sparking concern. Owen spots a girl hiding nearby and pursues her. Owen captures the girl, Hannah, and brings her to Sydney's for questioning. Hannah claims she is there to help find Sarkov, but Owen suspects deception. When Owen unexpectedly loses control of his powers, the girls lock themselves in the laboratory to avoid harm. Unable to penetrate Owen's invulnerable body, Abby suggests using chlorine gas to block his lungs. Hannah seizes the opportunity to escape when the door opens, and Owen regains consciousness with no memory of his power-induced actions. Jim investigates the attack at the lab and identifies 3 potential culprits, including Juan. He confronts Juan, seeking information about the lab incident, but Juan refuses to betray his friends. A physical altercation ensues, interrupted only when Juan transforms and attacks Jim. Alejandro lets Juan leave and reunite with his friends in Portland. Tilda, however, swipes Owen's phone to impersonate him and contact Sarkov. Realizing the ruse, Sarkov manages to escape. Their only option is to coordinate another meeting. They plan to rendezvous at the San Juan Islands, where Sarkov has a meeting scheduled. Upon their arrival at Sarkov's mansion, they intervene to save another one of his creations. After Zoe's escape, they pursue her to prevent further harm to the island residents. While searching, they encounter a group determined to stop Sarkov from eliminating Zoe. Juan and Tilda remain hidden, observing the doctor's apprehension. Utilizing her super hearing, Tilda attempts to locate Zoe, who has run off. Zoe, capable of absorbing and releasing electricity, causes an explosion when cornered. Fearful of harming her relatives, she keeps her distance. The situation grows dire as Sarkov's life hangs in the balance. Safia has a plan. Her supersonic screams will cut power to the entire island. Zoe's mother, relieved to see her daughter alive, boosts the town's generators. Zoe absorbs the excess energy, but Juan shields shields bystanders when she threatens to explode. After saving Zoe, they take Sarkov to Sydney's house, only to discover that Isabel Finch has captured the scientist. Hannah, no longer allied with Isabel, had warned Sydney of the impending danger. However, Isabel vanishes without a trace. As they confront Sarkov, he reveals Isabel and Sydney share the same body. Isabel cites her illness as the cause, unable to recall her actions during her other persona's control. While discussions of a potential cure are transpiring in the lab, flux agents surround Sydney's house. Tilda saves Juan from being shot, and Abbi approaches Dr. Crane, who suggests surrendering peacefully in exchange for not being subjected to blood sampling. Sydney chooses to lock herself in the lab with Sarkov to conduct further research, leading to Hannah's departure, though she is later shot. Abbi returns to the lab, using Doug's stem cells to heal Hannah's wounds. The sudden power outage coincides with Hannah's recovery. Abbi emits pheromones that induce anger in her friends, leading them to confront the flux agents. Juan transforms into CHUPACABRA, and Abbi uses her powers to manipulate the soldiers into attacking each other. Amid Abbi's conversation with Dr. Crane, Agent Jim targets her. Hannah intervenes, defeating Jim with her super speed. Dr. Crane still intends to take them as subjects, but Sydney offers herself for Flux's experiments in exchange for their freedom. The good news arrives. Sarkov discovers the cause of the genetic disorder and is close to developing a cure for the young participants in his program. That night, a new monster attack in Portland prompts the trio to investigate. Juan finds Darcy at the crime scene, accompanying her home to discuss recent events. Abbi, on the other hand, visits the hospital, taking a blood sample from a shocked victim before leaving. Darcy later encounters the same monster, but Juan intervenes, protecting her. When he regains consciousness, Juan finds himself in Sarkov's lab, with Darcy having departed to her parents' home in Vancouver. Juan wakes up, his slumber plagued by unsettling nightmares. The doctor later explains that the creature's venom induces paralysis and hallucinations. Abbi's analysis of the creature's DNA reveals it to be Nate, seeking revenge for the trio's actions against his friends. The following morning, Sarkov's announcement of a serum that could restore their humanity brings excitement. Abbi shares the news with Hannah, but their joy is short-lived as Nate appears. Abbi rushes to Hannah's aid when she is attacked, receiving a call from their adversary. Nate demands the cure in exchange for Hannah's release and becomes the first test subject. Upon awakening, Nate transforms back into a human, disclosing Hannah's location. Abbi vows to cure her next. With Hannah located, Tilda decides to take vengeance for Nate's actions. She uses her voice to incapacitate him, a power she had initially contemplated relinquishing. Meanwhile, Sydney finds herself conversing with Isabel Finch's voice in her head, unaware that she is within Lux's facility. Sydney escapes the facility using a lifeboat, eventually contacting Juan, providing relief to Abbi, who had assumed the geneticist perished. However, their call is cut short, leaving Sydney unable to disclose Dr. Crane's true plan. Frustrated with their dependence on Sarkov, Abbi resolves to replicate the serum herself. In contrast, Juan pursues Sarkov, prompting Tilda to seek Owen's assistance. Their partnership sours after a botched break-in results in a fight with criminals. Hours after escaping Lux's base, Sydney arrives home, seeking Abbi's aid in developing a cure. Despite her efforts, Sydney indicates that only Sarkov could recreate the serum. Nonetheless, Abbi pursues alternative hypotheses, eventually discovering the cure. However, Isabel inadvertently spills the serum, necessitating the retrieval of more DNA samples from Sarkov. He had deployed nano-robots capable of controlling animals. At his niece's birthday party, Juan identifies a clown as a Lux agent and eliminates him, prompting an argument with his brother. Left with no other recourse, Juan calls Abbi for help. Following the clown's burial, they pursue the lead Juan obtained from Tilda, eventually locating Sarkov's hideout. Isabel arrives and converses with Sarkov, attempting to persuade him to join her research. Sarkov, enraged by Tilda's refusal to cooperate with his experiments, shoots Tilda and Sydney. Upon awakening, Abbi discovers that Tilda has an uncanny regenerative ability. Realizing that Juan and Sydney have been taken by Sarkov, they embark on a rescue mission, which is interrupted by Jim. They learn that Sarkov has been working for Dr. Crane. Enemies join forces to uncover the truth. While the girls pursue Dr. Crane, Jim thwarts Flux's capture attempts with Hannah's assistance. They reach Sarkov's new hideout and find Juan has received the cure but lost his powers instead. Abbi administers the serum to Sydney, ending Isabel's control. Jim arrives and questions Sarkov, revealing that Crane is also involved in a DNA-altering project. Sarkov is arrested for his crimes. Tilda vanishes, Abbi receives a serum to block her pheromones, and Sydney finally finds some rest. 3 months later, Tilda becomes a vigilante, helping others like her. However, Abbi and Juan realize their powers are returning, even more uncontrollable than before. It was just the beginning. Loved this recap? Don't miss the next one. Subscribe, like, and comment which movie we should dive into next. Your pick could be our next spotlight, and turn on the notification so you stay alerted of our next post.